The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. Season 6 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, The Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Ocean Rose Organics and Crow's Nest Barbershops, Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC, and Stance Socks. Stance Socks signed on this year as a sponsor, and my family's feet and mine could not be happier. Stance Infinite gives Stance Socks increased durability, and that means Stance Socks are guaranteed for life. No more rips, tears, or holes. The nylon used in Infinite has higher filament count, which is a dense, compact nylon yarn that gives it a higher tensile strength. All Stance Snow Socks have Infinite in the areas that experience the most friction, like heels, toes, forefronts, and sometimes the ankle. Socks with Infinite will last 5 times longer than product without, and Stance collaborations are next level, like Wu-Tang. You can celebrate one of the greatest hip-hop collaborations of all time, hailing from Staten Island, New York City, and originally composed of East Coast rappers. Rep the Wu-Tang Clan on the mountain with the Protect Your Neck Snow Sock, made with Stance Infinite technology for longer-lasting durability. Protect your neck, but don't forget to protect your feet. Thank you very much to Stance Socks for supporting Season 6 of FNRad. Support also comes from Grouse Mountain and Mount Seymour, as well as Tomahawk Cannabis Extracts. Etienne Gilbert is an influential Whistler transplant who cut his teeth in the Mount St. Anne halfpipe alongside the 418 crew. His part in Mack Dawg's People movie showcases his style and discipline with hammers on rails, ledges, and backcountry jumps. It's really an all-time part. You can check that out on YouTube. Etienne moved straight from Whistler to Australia, where he now lives with his wife and 2 daughters, and works with at-risk youth who have had difficulty in attending and engaging in mainstream education. I spoke to him yesterday, and he could not be a nicer guy. Here is Etienne Gilbert.
I had some friends on the south shore of Quebec City that his brother and him and his dad basically started a snowboard shop, skateboard shop in a skateboard park.
Cool.
And they were pretty kind of, they knew what was going on. And
is that Emmanuel Krebs?
No. So that was a bit. These guys were a bit younger than Emmanuel Krebs.
Yeah.
They were the Savar's brother.
Oh.
Cal Savar? Man, I probably forgot those names now. Steve Savar and Cal Savar, I think. Yeah.
Very
good
cool.
skaters too. But yeah, they knew their stuff, and I kind of get introduced, I guess, with snowboarding. There was the Black Snow ad on TV, and I kind of got slowly introduced, but I think it's really when I got into skateboarding and met some of those guys, that's when I got really into the scene. Before that, I was snowboarding, but my mom took me to the ski resort. We bought like a secondhand rental, Rossignol, racy type board. I didn't have a clue really, and my mom either. So yeah. But it's when I, the following summer, I met some skateboarders, and then the guys in the shop and all that, and that's when I started, kind of following the the circus a bit more,
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, those guys knew what's up. Those guys like the crap snowboards. Remember that?
I do remember crap snowboards. Yeah.
They had that stuff in there, man. And they're cool guys. Yeah.
Oh, that is so sick. So you're from Quebec City?
Yeah, just the South Shore. We call it Quebec City because it's Quebec City itself. Even though if it's a city, it's more like a city town. It's not huge, so we call it South Shore. Yeah. South Shore. No, there was a thing as the South Shore and the North Shore. Back in Quebec. Yeah.
So where would you go to snowboard? Was there snowboarding in town? And
was a bit like I was a bit like Ben Biloc. We just built stuff around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think for me, I grew up playing ice hockey, competitive, so there was a lot of driving around. And then I kind of quit the ice hockey thing, and I just wanted to do my own thing, and my parents were probably a bit tired of driving around everywhere. And at the time, I didn't really care. I just I had this little, hill at the back of my house. So we built like one of those, go down the hill, build a jump at the flat bottom.
Yes.
Cheese wedge to cheese wedge type thing, and then we progressed to some slightly steeper hills around the neighborhood, and we just did that. We did a lot of like just street spots, but not without the streets.
Without the street,
just grass. Yeah, just grassy hills away from the crowd.
I can remember the debate around: do we build the jump at the flat bottom or do we build it on the hill still? I was on the wrong side of that. I was like, no, all the way at the flat bottom. You want as much speed from the hill as you can, and
That's
then
right.
and then when you are done your air, you want to be completely stopped. But they were like, no, you want a bit of the hill to land on, so it's like soft.
Kind of counting steps, like footsteps. Oh, that was one of those 22 footsteps, dude. That was awesome, But like, it didn't really matter because we were always going straight from the top. So it was depending more on the snow condition than ourselves on how far we could go.
Exactly. Man, that's so fun.
So that's how I grew up, And every now and then, my mom used to sort of buy me those evening lift tickets at Saint-Castin, I think it was called Le Relais. Saint-Castin is no longer a ski resort now. It's just a bunch of houses built there.
Oh, wow.
But like a very
small,
at the time, was probably the more accepting resort for snowboarders.
Right.
So we used to go there. And I literally never had a season pass back home.
Oh, wow.
Now my first season pass-ish was in Lake Louise when I spent like a winter there. I would say 96 perhaps.
Okay.
And then I basically bought like a season pass of a lifty who was actually an Australian dude at the time who looked like me. And back then it was like the photo with the goggles on, like nobody really cared. So we bought this pass of this guy for pretty cheap, and then that was my first pass where I could ride every day. So we were pretty pumped on that.
So who's in Lake Louise at this time? Is this like
just me and my homies, man? It was just the guys that I picked up the snowboarding with,
Yeah.
One guy kind of made the move to Whistler later, kind of had a little crack, but those other two dudes that I was with, they were just on there for the adventure, just want to take a break from school. They never really took it, super seriously.
Right.
But me and this other guy there, Nick Ryu, we were pretty pumped. We wanted to, ride hard, go and try our shit out. But it was a really good trip. Met some other Frenchies, from Montreal, who showed me around, and then went back home after that for the spring, and that was when the half pipe in Mont Saint Anne was starting to sort of shape up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that would have been the very early days of the 418 crew, before I don't know about exactly when those guys met, but that was the first season where Mont Saint Anne had a pipe. So I got there in the spring, rode some pipe, and I basically stuck around. I think that summer I was meant to move to Whistler, but like being a bit younger, you kind of count on some guys that are a bit older, I guess, and you want to kind of follow their lead. But then the one dude that I was planning on going out to Whistler with kind of pulled the plug, and I was like, oh shit, like I'll just stick around. Yeah. And I just got wasted that summer. And then all the money that I had saved was basically not all of it, but like a lot of it was gone in like 40s and blunts and French baguette. We used to just go skateboard, buy a 40 and a French baguette at the corner at the gas station, and then kick back. But
that's so badass, dude.
Yeah. So that year I went back to college. I did all the minimal course requirement, and I made sure that I could snowboard 4 days a week.
Yep.
And then that's when I went to Mont Saint Anne like 2-3 times a week, probably, if not more. And that's where I met the guys from the 418 crew.
See, I didn't know I didn't know 418 started out. I knew it was the area code from where you guys were from, but I didn't know it started out east. I thought that it started in Whistler.
No, it started out east. It was just a bunch of dudes. Again, these guys knew each other before I met them. I met them in the half pipe there. Yeah. They were probably a bit ahead of my game. I probably started a bit late compared to some of those other guys. I was 15, 16 when I picked up the board.
Yeah.
But that was a cool year though, man, because what we did is that somehow these guys were selling lift tickets with points, and every chair ride was worth a certain amount of points. So if you bought, like, say, a car that was 100 points, then the one ride up was like 10 points. But we were like, well, fuck it, we'll just take the chair once,
Oh wow.
bring our lunch and our freaking food by the half pipe, and just hike all day. So we did that. Like, it was super cheap,
Yeah.
They picked up on it the year after and canceled that kind of pass because a few guys were doing it.
Yeah.
But we basically me and my mate, and a few of those guys had season pass, but me and my close mate, that's all we did. We just parked and just hike and hit the pipe and just rode it like all day long, dude. We're in good shape.
Yeah. That's so sick. That pass is awesome. Yeah, I've often thought about that. Like if they change the season pass to, like, price per run or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's what it was,
Yeah.
But like, we were like, fuck that. We don't care about going up and down.
Yeah.
Your shitty icy slopes,
Well, that's like Mount Hood in the summer, right? Like, it's $100 for a lift ticket. And they didn't used to kick you off if you hiked up. I think now they probably are watching for it. Like, you can't just hike up. But like, it's an hour hike from the parking lot up to the camps.
Yeah,
it's
man.
In the sun.
It's
grueling.
Yeah, I think back then, there was some dude that tried to hike from the bottom. You could get caught,
Yeah.
The only time I did it is when I was actually injured. I couldn't ride, so I used to hike up without my board just to go hang out and watch the dudes.
Wow.
Like, rip it up. I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, stay home and fucking like go crazy? So I just go and watch the guys ride, And that's how much we just that's all we thought about was snowboarding.
That's incredible. So right from the beginning, were you critical of style? Like, that's one of the things that you've got a reputation for. And
I was listening, But and by the way, like, man, like, I didn't really know about your podcast until you approached me, and I know I'm a big fan of podcasts. I would like to listen to more, but I don't have a lot of time. But I did make an effort of listening to 2-3 of yours and some samples of. So I probably, was across Jody, Devins, Bilock. Who else I listened to? Kearns.
Sick.
I thought it was one more, but yeah, man. And I would look at the whole list of guys that you've interviewed over the years, and I was like, wow, that's a proper list, man.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Well done, man.
It was a little bit easier as you go back further and further. There was less people doing podcasts, and also people didn't know how to use their social media yet to like have it private. So like I could just go to Sean Palmer's social media and like be like, hey Sean, what's up? And like,
dude, what's up?
and he'd be like, oh shit,
remember me, man?
yeah, exactly. In Sean Palmer's, he says something like, who the hell is this again? Like, who are you?
Where the fuck are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Good work, man.
Thanks, man. It means a lot.
I'm privileged to be part of your thing there. Like, and I living in Australia now, being in Australia for all these years, like, I know some snowboarders, but that's not my everyday thing now. Like, I don't actually get to chat about snowboarding very often anymore, and I know it's good to get a good old snowboard chat in there.
Oh, it's my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing.
Because if I talk about snowboarding here, I end up talking about myself because those guys, they go riding, the guys that I know here, they go riding every now and then, but they don't really know about, the scene and all that.
Right.
Which is cool as well. I'm just saying that I don't talk snowboarding that often, even though if I still love it,
Right. Well, when I was looking at stuff from you, like the shit you were doing in the Whistler backcountry in the early 2000s, holy Christ, man. Oof. That is insane. You were really good. So
I don't look back at my career, in that light. I always think like, fuck, man, why weren't we any better than that? Like, come on. It's like, what the fuck? It's not that hard to get the kids these days, man. They fucking do everything.
Oh, dude. No,
it's all evolution, and,
yes.
And the gear and the park and the exposures and the knowledge and everything. And,
absolutely.
there was no coaching back then, like we're all figuring it out,
Right.
I tried to like slow-mo videos, like, oh, holy fuck, he's going off his toes, he's going off his heel. We had no idea.
Totally.
Like, how to set up for the, turning into it and all that, like just making it up.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, I can see how. I mean, now the level is like so high. But I look back and you're right. I think style was important. Style was the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, even through your podcast, you do hear people talking about style and skateboarding and I don't know, like style is important, but you don't realize how fucking hard it is until you film yourself. Like. Because you think, hey, man, I was sick. And you look at yourself and you're like, fuck, I want to puke.
Yes.
Like, what the hell? Like, is that really how shitty I look, So it's probably even easier nowadays to, like, dial that stuff in because your feedback loop is instant. You do a trick, you watch you look at your phone, oh, man, okay. But back then, it was, like, a cheap video cam and you had to go, you couldn't rewind because the tape was frozen. And then you had the film, you had to shoot it, you wait 2 weeks and you think it's right and it's not. So I feel like style was important, but it was also a bit of a weird one to sort of dial in because it's like you kind of have in your head what you want it to look like.
Yes.
But your body doesn't necessarily allow you to do it that way.
Your body always sneaks in these arm rolls and like these weird little balance adjustments that look terrible. You're like,
man, you
holy
think that's
shit.
amazing, and then you got this fucking window going down. You're like, what the fuck happened? Like, how did that window happen? But I mean, style was important for me, man. Like, if anything, I was probably more on the calculated side.
Yeah.
Then the gut side, I think over time I've learned to trust my gut a bit more. But originally, it was like every single grab, and then the front side 180 with every single grab, and then the back side 180 with every single grab. And we believed in that. We believed that you had to have that really sort of stock stuff in before you started hucking. So my crew and I, we were just like, we hated huckers. Like, we had a fucking deep hate for huckers. Nice. So I guess, that's probably how the whole style thing started. Like, but I didn't have a lot of influence early on. That's just me and my one or two mates. That's just what we like to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wasn't influenced by a huge crowd until maybe a year or two into it,
Yeah, so when do you move to Whistler? You go back to Quebec and then...
Yeah, I go back after Lake Louise. I go back to school for a year and then the following summer. So basically following spring. So from the time I got back from Lake Louise, more or less a year later, I moved to Whistler in the spring. Yeah. April. Remember my first day there, I got there and my homie had a place for me. He had a board. One of the first Devon Wash forum board. Oh, wow. The big wash at the bottom. Yep. He was like, just grab this, man, grab my pass, go shred, my first day there. It was a bit rainy, but man, I was like, wow, pump, It's big. And, learned switchback side 3 on that day on the side hit. And then I was like, fuck, it's on. I was by myself too. I was riding by myself, but just taking it all in. So that was spring of 98. Is that right? Wow, that's my first winter was 98, 99, which is a big winter. Oh, it was huge. Yeah. So that spring. Yeah, so that spring 98, I was actually only planning to be there for the summer. And then all the dudes from the 418, all the dudes from, the Mont Saint-Anne it was this big migration, all the dudes were making the move. So I knew they were there, but I didn't really know them really that well. But anyway, spent the summer riding on the glacier and all these guys were sticking around. And I was like, man, fuck, I can't leave. I mean, like, look at this place. Like, I was like, this is way too cool. And then, some of those guys had sponsors and were kind of hooked up, and I didn't have that much, but I thought, man, like, I'm not that far off those dudes, and I haven't been riding for as long as they have. So I was like, I got to give it a crack, So I called my mom. I said, Mom, I'm not going back to school. I'm sticking around. This is too good, blah, blah, blah. And, my mom was like, hooray, good on you. But at the same time, my parents, they've always been really supportive. They've never pushed me with snowboarding, but they always supported me.
Right.
So, she was like, I can see you excited. It'll be good for your English. And just a life skill as well, living on your own, paying rent and all that. So she was supportive of that. So she said, yeah, sure, go for it. And, have fun.
Where did you get a
And then,
job? Did you get a job up there? Obviously, you would have had to.
yeah, man, for sure. And you have to work, man. I didn't have much money, showing up there. I had a few jobs. Benny's Bagels, baking bagel. That was the best though, dude. Like, I woke up at 3 a.m. when all my friends came back from the bar and went and baked bagels in the morning.
Nice.
And then I had breakfast there. I made myself a bagel wrap. And then I went up the glacier, ate my bagel for lunch, came back, had a big sleep, and did it again. Man, it was awesome. Kept me out of trouble.
Yeah.
And it was good, like a good little gig there for a few months.
Yeah.
Then I work at Beaver Tails, that place at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
Man, fuck. But that guy, though, a bit of a shitty job when you think about it like that. But man, the owner was a legend.
Yeah.
This guy Wayne Katz. I don't know if he's still there, but fuck, that dude was a legend, man. And he believed in me. It was weird. Like, he didn't know anything about snowboarding. We was like, man, you know what? You're gonna make it, dude. Yeah. He's like, you got what it takes. I'm like, based on what, And he even paid for a few of my contest entry at the time. Like, he was a legend.
Oh, that's so sick.
Yeah, and you get a free pass, at the time because they were owned by the mountain or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, my first winter there. Yeah, worked there, and then I had the keg. I worked at the keg.
Oh, wow.
In the summer, which was cool as well. I worked with some cool guy. You work in the kitchen, it's like you're pumping all night and high pace, you're hot, you're a bit stressed. And then after that, you have a beer, go to the skate park. And I used to have my best skate session after working in a restaurant because you're hype.
Yeah.
It's a fast pace and everybody's a good energy. And I always walked out of there and my ollie always felt so good. I'm like, fuck, this feels good. Let's go. And then take a couple of beers in the creek at the bowl and just skate, and then go for the last go at the bar and then went home. So that, it's such good times, man. Like,
yeah, man.
I really feel like there's a lot of people in the world that will never experience that,
Oh, yeah.
That feeling of just going for it, living your best life with a bunch of cool people in a cool place, living your dream, just shit lining up, and happening, in the right way. Like, there's a lot of people in this world that will never get to do that,
Oh, absolutely.
And
it sounds like you almost didn't, right? Like, because once you get into that school thing where you're like, I got to be at school in the fall, and
yeah,
and then you get a career right out of school, so like snowboarding starts to become this weekend thing.
Yes and no. I was too scared of the 9 to 5, dude. I was really scared.
Cool.
Yeah, like, I think guys, I don't know how old you are, but I'm like 40, 41 or 42 now.
Yeah.
And, my parents' generation, they were like the lifers, you get a job, you get in there, you do your 30, 40 years and sometimes more.
Yeah.
And that was it, So that was the semi-post-war lifestyle. Like,
totally.
You're fucking grateful for having a job. You just don't complain, stick it out. You have a roof, you have a food, you have your family, you have your job, be grateful.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of a hangover. And so I just remember being so scared. And I can see my dad just not happy at work, right?
Right.
But not looking like to move as if like it wasn't an option.
Right.
And for me, man, the thought of, going to school and doing something that I wasn't passionate about, being on the school bench, just thinking about snowboarding didn't make any sense. And plus my parents were not, we're not poor, but we're not rich. So my parents always said, you pay for half your school, we'll pay for the other half.
Cool.
So like, man, I'm going to invest freaking my wage into a schooling that I don't really care about. Like, so I knew I wasn't going to really stick it out. It's just, you're young and you kind of like, like you don't necessarily plan like that far ahead, but
yeah,
it was pretty clear that, pretty quickly that I just needed to snowboard. I needed to give it a crack.
Sick.
And I actually remember the day, like, I was we snuck in some sort of hot tub somewhere in Whistler, like we always did in the summer, right? You just walk over the fence and jump in there. And I was with one of my mates there, and and we were like, fuck, what are we doing, And I was like, you know what, fuck it. I was like, I don't care, man. Even if I spend 10 years here and it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to school when I'm 25 or when I'm 27 or whatever. Like actually it's okay, it's a weird conversation, but like the whole 10-year thing, I don't know how it came up, but back then I already knew that 10 years was a key number. I was like, if you do something for 10 years, man, you'll be a pro.
Yeah.
So I was like, and I knew this one dude that was just going on 10 years, Emmanuel Camiran, actually. He was a big mentor of mine, friend of Krebs and Dignard and all those older dudes.
Yep.
And he was about going on 10 years, and he was good, but like at the same time, I was like, man, like, there's some things he did that I could do, and I was like, I'm not that far. I'm like, fuck, I wonder how good I can be if I just put 10 years in,
Yeah.
So that's that one night in Whistler, we're like, fuck, let's do it, man. Let's do the fucking 10-year plan, Let's just go for it. I was like, let's go in, man, and let's go find out, how good we can be at this shit. And then that was it. That was the day that I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Let's just invest everything in this for now, and then and see what happens. And it just kind of worked out. We met, how it is over there. You meet photographers and you meet filmers, and then suddenly you get the shot, and it's, yeah, man, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see. And then all the other dudes as well. That's what happened, is that we had this movement, all the Frenchies doing the same thing at the same time, and everybody was sort of like supporting each other, and it was all working out for everybody at a different pace and in different ways, but we were all progressing. We were all like moving in the right direction. And I often felt like, whatever positive happens to one dude, it's like it happens to me, So we were all like, every time somebody did something good, it was helping our cause, to be noticed. And so it was a really cool time to be, in Whistler. And I mean, every generation have their cool things, but for me, that's what I experienced. And I look back and it was amazing.
I can remember going up there in the summers or in the spring, right? Like when the park was really firing, it'd be like right now, actually, like slushy, and the jumps are all made and it's sunny. And I can remember, year after year, Whistler getting like busier and busier and busier. And there was a few years where the French guys rolling through those busy parks, like just running around the lines, because you would have to stop at each feature, you know what I mean? And kind of queue up, and then you'd get to the front of the line and there'd be all this like pressure on you because everybody behind you is now watching you. And the French guys just rolling around the line, just like flowing, you know what I mean? Not in an arrogant way, just in a way of like, oh, you have to be that good. Like if you're going to go around the line and hit the jump, then you have to do something fucking badass on the jump. You can't go around the line and then biff it, because that would just be terrible. But like, I remember the French invasion, like it was like, holy shit, everybody that's ripping at this park this spring is French.
And like, and man, like, every single one of them, if anything, I was probably the most boring one of them all, but all freaking characters, dude. Like, all just weirdos of their own, and just loving them just for the way they are, like, man, the list is very long of funny dudes.
Well, speaking of being themselves, like, so I was a shop guy, so I you'd watch the videos every year, and by the early 2000s, it's starting to get boring, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of the same videos every year. It started to be things that we couldn't do, and there weren't the characters like there were in the early 90s, right? And then LNP came out, and I just remember being like blown away by the guy's style. He was so quirky, but he was also so perfect. Like, everything he did perfectly. But it looked like also his trick selection was fun. He was obviously like super talented, but he was also obviously having the most amount of fun of anyone out there. It was insane. He brought me out of like a cloud of like, I didn't really love snowboarding as much as I had. And then I was like, oh shit, this guy, holy fuck. Like, snowboarding is still as sick as it's ever been. And it's progressing in this really awesome direction.
Man, it's not easy to stand out, and to somehow like think your own thought and be like, you know what, everybody's doing this, but fuck, I just feel like doing that. Like,
Yeah.
I think we all had that to a certain extent, but some dude had it more than others.
Yes.
And you're young, you know, like you're not fully mature, and you are influenced, and you are to like, you try to belong, you try to fit in, you try to get noticed, and you know, for me, like, you know, I've reflected on that a few times in the last few weeks, and like, oh, I mean, it's nothing special. I guess we all would do things differently if we could go back in time and knew what we know, you know.
Right.
But I would have a lot more fun with my career if I could go back knowing what I know now.
Right.
And I think a lot of guys will probably say the same thing. But every now and then you get a few of those dudes that seems to be doing that naturally. And I think Laurent was one of those guys. I think he just had his own fun. He had his own vision of what it wanted his stuff to look like.
Yeah.
He just did that. And you know, they had their influence as well, naturally, like we all had.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it definitely stood out, you know, and he did have a lot of fun on his board. Like, that's for sure. If you hung out with him, you had that energy, you know, coming out of him. A bit like DCP had that same energy too, you know, just a freaking, like, in a different ways, but like just the passion, the pure passion for it, and just wanting it, you know. A very different energy, but similar kind of excitement, you know, and fun around it.
Rad.
And laughter around it. Yeah.
So what were the contests that you were doing at that time? Like, were you drawn into, did you do like a bunch of half pipe stuff?
So with the whole progression was obviously the half pipe stuff in Quebec a little bit. I wasn't any good at contests at the beginning. And then naturally you want to be putting yourself in those situations because you know, you get to ride some hopefully good courses, you know.
Yeah.
And then you're putting a bit of pressure on yourself. The guys are pushing each other, so it's good time to learn about yourself and your skills and all that. So I did compete in the Nike series, and I did I actually won the boardroom slopestyle one year, which I was pretty pumped. That was my first win.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, man, at Seymour.
Nice.
So, and then I kind of throughout the year, you know, I kind of competed here and there. I did a few of the Vans, Triple Crowns. I had a few wins. I was, you know, I'm happy with my contest history, I guess, coming from a guy that didn't really want to focus on that entirely. So I won like a Triple Crown, the boardroom. I think I got second or it was first or second at this Winter Love Festival.
Oh,
remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, there was, I think it was not too far from after the boardroom slopestyle.
Right.
And then I did the shakedowns, obviously, you know, in Montreal, and I did the X Games a couple years. That's pretty much it, you know. But I slowly kind of moved away from the half pipe contest. It was too much discipline for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it, man.
Well, half pipe at that time was just exploding too, right? Like the people that like it's progressing so far in that direction that, you know,
and you get to Whistler.
Yep.
And there was just so much to do. Like I couldn't see myself just riding the bloody pipe that's snowing all the time, you know, like you wanted to mix it up. And I was just like that. Like I just always wanted to be a good all around snowboarder.
Yes.
And then kind of make sure I touched on everything. You know, I really look up to guys that were good all around snowboarders.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to just, whatever it was in front of me, I could do something cool on it, you know. So that's, you know, that's what I always wanted or aspired to be.
That's
this sort
sick.
of all around snowboard ball, whatever is in front, it just bounce out, you know, and can land on its feet. that was my analogy at the time. I want to be like a ball going down the mountain. It doesn't matter what's in front, just roll.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah.
Who's the first sponsor? Who's the first people that hook you up?
There was a snowboard shop in Quebec called EQ.
Anon Optics. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So these guys were you know, pretty at the center of the scene in Quebec at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Kreb rode for them, and Nick Dignard rode for them, and Emmanuel Camiran rode for them. So they were the three kind of older guys.
Yep.
And then I kind of how did it happen? I think I knew one of the guys that worked there because he was coming to the skate park that these other dudes, you know, had built on the South Shore. And I just made a tape one year, you know, good old tape. And And it was, man, I can't remember what this, it was like cost or, just a discount, but that's fine. He didn't care, man. Like, anything you could get, you were pumped on. So that was the first thing.
Yeah.
And then my first real board sponsor was probably One Track. Before that, Krebs hooked me up with some limited snowboard.
Yep.
But that was pretty much it. Yeah, that was it. I paid for my own board for a few years. It's almost like I was unofficially sponsored by the showcase because I kept snapping board and I just returned them and they gave me a new one.
Yeah.
There was even a time I was so desperate. I was like, fuck, man, this Burton custom sucks. I'm so over it, man. It's fucking wobbly. And then one day I was desperate. I took it, I flipped it backward and I bent it. I snapped it on purpose. And I went to the shop and I said, I tumbled. The tail got cut in the snow and it snapped.
Oh my God.
The guy said, yeah, man, no worries. Got one of those boards here. Literally, like, right in front of me. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, man, just it's fine. I had my receipt already, but literally just swap board and walked out and grabbed a limited snowboard. And then Crab at the time, Emmanuel Crab, I think, was riding for them or whatever. And then from there, he saw that. He thought, I think he hooked me up and maybe a couple more boards in the mix there.
Yeah.
But yeah, One Track was that first hookup, and that was because of Carlo Wayne from Alterna Action, right? So we met him on the glacier, and he was doing his first movie, and he thought, One Track is sponsoring the movie. Why don't you guys, grab a board, and then we can do a bit of filming. So that's kind of happened. Like it was like pretty much, in that first winter. So I got there in the spring, summer came, and then the winter started. And that first winter, towards the end of that winter, is when I got a bit of footage together for the first Alterna movie, which was Fathom, I think. Fathom.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yuli Rickard.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was also helping out with the movie. So we got some footage in there. And that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah.
But that was cool, man. Just again to be taking around and showing around. And we went to Hood and Baker in the spring and did the whole no snowmobiles at the time, just hiking around and building stuff.
Yeah.
And then just making shit. Just it didn't matter, man. You're just getting out there, doing it. It was pretty cool.
Who did One Track? I don't know much about that company. I remember the logo.
I don't remember the name of the owners, but obviously at the time it was Mike Page and Dave Kenny.
Oh,
were the two main dudes.
Rad.
So those two guys were basically the front, of the company image. And then, I guess that's kind of how the connection there. Carlo knew the guys, and One Track wanted the guys to film, and that's what it was. It was. And we were pumped. I was pumped because I felt like the dudes were cool. They were welcoming, they were kind of pushing as well, snowboarding in their own ways. Yeah. And they just kind of took us on their team, and showed a lot of support for us. So I was like, yeah, man, fuck, let's go.
And then once you're in the movies, does someone approach you and offer you like an actual contract? Is there a point where you get to quit your job kind of thing and you're like, oh shit, I'm getting paid to snowboard now?
It gets tough to go down the memory lane like that, but I know that I probably rode the board for like a year and a half before I got offered some money. And then the company just stopped the collapse, right? Right. But then that's kind of like how I got onto Nitro at the time. Sick. I obviously had some footage, and then I met Sheen. And Sheen was somehow, I don't know why, but Sheen was kind of backing me up for some reason. So I was like, sweet. But I met some guys. I met some guys through the summer camp. That's what happened. At the time, I think Session Clothing. Yep. Andrew Hicks hooked me up, and I met him because I had a job at West Beach snowboard shop. So I eventually scored a job there, which was awesome too, right? Yeah. So I was pumped. I was meeting people. So I met him. And then they were sponsoring Camp a Champion, and they said, Andrew said to, Achenbach, hey, I got this kid, and I think it'd be great. And then I got a job, as a coach. Rad. So that's kind of, I got some connection there. Camp a Champion. And these years, man, were fucking so sweet. Man, again, man, just to experience that, like, belonging, that partying, snowboarding, showing kids a good time. Yeah, it wasn't always super appropriate, but like, still, man, like, it was so freaking rad. And yeah, so that's how I guess I met Sheen that way. And then, one track disappeared. Sheen put my name forward. I had a few things, to show from working with Carlo, and kind of that's how Nitro started. So, and then Nitro remained my board sponsor until the end of my career, basically.
Damn. Nitro's got a really good history. I mean, they've been making boards since forever.
Yeah,
and those
man.
in between years, like where Sheen was on Nitro, right? Like all the boards were black
Sheen
for like 4 years.
Lucas.
Oh yeah.
Lucas. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
So I was fortunate to ride with those guys a little bit, and again, they were super welcoming, man. And it never felt like you were competing with them. It was more like, hey man, that's cool. I like your riding. Let's do your thing. I do my thing, type of thing. So yeah, they were fun years, man, for sure.
So when do you start going into the backcountry? Like, do you first
go? It just kind of naturally happened.
Yeah. Do you go with somebody who's got a sled, and then you're like, oh, I got to get one of these, or do you just buy a sled and kind of go?
Obviously, the whole gathering production, right? Like,
right.
So those guys, obviously, again, like, we kind of stuck together. We're like, let's do it, the way we want to do it, and if we're not being supported by the industry 100%, we can support each other. So that's kind of how it all, started. So obviously, those guys. We had like the on-hill crew type thing, and then we had the backcountry crew, and I slowly got sort of short around. Like you get picking up, you buy the cheapest, dirtiest sled you can find. It's good enough to get you up there in the spring, but not so much in the powder.
Yep.
And that's how I started. I think Martin Galland was probably the first one to take me out, and Ryan, no doubt.
Sick.
And then I think that same year I went up with Colin Adair and the Treetop crew.
Yep.
I think Gabe Langlois at the time might have filmed for them, and then
sick.
I think the first day I actually went up with those guys on the powder day.
Wow.
Kevin Young was there, actually. That's fuck Kevin was there. And I was like, what the fuck's going on here, And I got the beginner's luck. I think I got 3 tricks on that one day, and I was like, fuck, this shit's easy. No, I didn't think that at all, because I barely made it up there. Barely made it up there, but it was a good day, man. It's just kind of like a lot of things for me. I think it was just like a natural progression.
Yes.
You kind of, you want to, like Ben was saying, I think there's progression and evolution. So my evolution was always, want to go deeper in the mountain while keeping the skateboard sort of influence. That's why I've always kept hitting the rails. Having said that, the rails probably everything kind of beats you up, but
yeah,
towards the end, I was definitely moving away from the rails a bit more. But it was such a, again, it's that skateboarder in you, plus, having access to all that stuff in Quebec. And then I've always made a point of balancing my season. So I just go back home, hang out with the family, and then spend the early season there and hit a few rails. And then when the mountain was filled up and we can go snowmobile, I just moved back to Whistler and do the snowmobile thing,
Oh,
and
wow.
then every now and then go back to Quebec in the spring to shoot a few more rails. So I always sort of balance my season that way, and I know it's part of it was also because I wanted to go home, but I wanted to also keep my home trip productive. So it was a mix of reasons that kept me sort of going into the streets.
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it would have been relatively easy to mistake your constructive criticism for, like, people would be like, shit, I don't know if that guy likes me.
Yeah, I think the French thing as well could be sometimes, like I guess the English wasn't necessarily like really good at the beginning. So I think the way we said things sometimes could have get interpreted, different than what we meant it to be. But I've always liked helping people out, giving advice, coaching the kids, coaching each other, mentoring the younger generation. I've always enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I guess, it's just something that was natural in me,
Yeah.
Obviously when I moved out here and, kind of figure shit out, like I reflected on those years and I thought, man, I really have always enjoyed, helping people out. achieve their goals, or even a Quebec champion. It wasn't just teaching snowboarding. You had these kids, and you would talk about just life in general, and you've had these cool conversations. And I've always enjoyed, I guess, sharing my experiences and helping people bounce off somebody to come up with their own sort of conclusion or answers, or their own answers,
Yeah.
I was fortunate to have a few of those guys in my life. So it was a thing that I enjoyed having, done for me, and I've kind of wanted to do it for everybody else. And it was also just sharing the passion, when you love something so much, when you just want to share it,
Right.
And that's what I was doing. That's what I did with Ben and with whoever wanted
that
to
whole
hear it,
Deja Vu crew. Were you closest with Ben, or were you like all those guys, like
all those guys were pretty much on par, man, because they just came to the shop. They just came to the shop at the time when I worked there.
Oh, and then, I got you.
We always talked about, the industry, and we saw what they were doing. We're like, fuck, man, these guys are legit. They got some good style. Like, what they're doing is clean. Mm-hmm. And again, it was this whole like continuation of like supporting the homies. Like, it's one thing in the industry to be the Canadian against the US.
Yes. Yes.
And we talked about, and I can't remember who who was talking about California versus Canada in your podcast there, Jody, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We're just a small industry. There's less sales to make, so therefore, we're less important as a money figure. Yeah. And then you put the French Canadian, it's another sort of. We felt a little bit like we were Frenchies against the world, so we just kind of support each other.
Yeah.
Not like, yeah.
No, I've heard it.
We wanted to be there for those kids, so we did that. And
Yeah, I think the generation ahead of you, right? Like Martin and
man,
JF.
they were there for us as well.
Yeah. And they talked about like having to fight, like physically fight in Whistler. Like there would be there would be fights. So that just.
See, good thing it was them, because I would have not fight. I would have got squashed.
Oh man. So there's support.
The whole territory, and all that. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, like I haven't listened to Martin's podcast yet, but he's told me some stories before. Like, this guy's full story, right?
Yeah.
Martin is good value man. Obviously, like, he took us on the side too, and did a lot for us. So.
Yeah, that's so sick, man. I like that. Well, I always felt like it was because before I came out west, you'd be trying to watch snowboarding, and there's no snowboarding anywhere, but the skiing, like the freestyle skiing was kind of like, it was still on the snow. So the Quebec Air Force was dominating through the 80s and 90s. Yeah. So there was a heritage of these Quebec riders, or skiers at least, that there was a lot of pride there. They were the best in the world. And so then you guys like literally were some of the best in the world at snowboarding. So it just made sense to me. I was like, yeah, of course. You come from Quebec. Yeah. It's fucking rock solid all winter, and you're riding ice.
When we moved out, we felt like, all the guys in BC that were born and raised were just like spoiled little brats, that just had it there their whole life, and just be like, oh, can't be fucked. Like, we were like, the fuck they're doing? It's a bit like when I moved here at first, I was like, why is not everybody in the surf?
Right.
Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But like, we came from obviously like shortest season and icy conditions. So like when we got to BC, it was like, fuck, man, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on. So, and then, I think it's a natural thing as well. You kind of want what you don't want. And in Quebec, doesn't matter what you want. It's out there somewhere except where you're from. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're always dreaming about what's possible and when it gets to you, I guess, and because you have to earn it, right? You have to earn to get to it. Mm-hmm. Except for ice hockey, it's like, fuck. It's like anything else. If you work hard to get it, like, the reward is bigger and the motivation is stronger, right? And the will to continue, I guess, is also stronger.
Yep.
So I think that's what translated from Quebec, and this is the whole history of it. Just the whole, go back I'm big on going back in history. Like, you go back and at the beginning, we were just like prisoners and whores sent to just like basically work in the freaking snow and make living where, you know, nothing grows.
Yeah.
And then the French had to basically fought their way to keep that little piece of land. So I think we're like rebels / fighters, you know, / survivors.
For sure.
And I think like that's only like 450 years, 500 years ago. Like that's like yesterday, dude. Like that stuff doesn't disappear, you know, down the bloodline that quickly.
No, I hear you.
You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, the license plates say "I remember," like I remember me, right? That's what it means. It's like I remember being French. I remember the struggle that we had to, you know. So it's still now. It's still, it's still a thing. I mean, going to Montreal is more like going to Europe or another country than going to California. It's metropolitan. It's very European. It has a very European, you know, feel to it.
For sure.
And the architecture. I mean, Quebec City's gorgeous, and so is Montreal.
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful city. Yeah,
it's really cool to hear that you kept going back, because for a lot of people, I mean, you just can't, right? Like you can't afford it, or you. I
mean, obviously the industry allowed it, which was great.
Yes.
So I did that. I mean, you can't really say that nowadays. Like I've been here for like almost 11 years now, so I don't go back very often. It seems like every time I go back to Quebec, it's because somebody's dying.
Oh man,
so,
yeah.
You know, at least I go back, but yeah, it's obviously now with the kids and the mortgage and the work, the job, it's a different. You know, I don't get to go back as much as I would like to in COVID and all that, so forget about it. But you know, back then it was convenient and it made sense. You know, like it was congruent with what I wanted to do, so it was good that way. It was a win-win.
Yeah.
You have to make sacrifice and you have to make choices that, you know, sometimes you just give up on or put things on the shelf.
Yep.
And I did that for like I think 3 or 4 years. I did not go back for I think 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
Until I was financially a bit more, you know, allowed or able to do it. But I hear you, man. I think it's good to stay connected, you know, in one way or the other.
Yeah.
And to remember where you're from and all that. So it's, I do like going back. And when I go back, it's always feels, you know, really nice. And it's just, hey, it's your home. I mean, it's my home, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I have 3 homes though. I feel like, you know, Quebec, Whistler, Australia, it's like I've almost spent the same amount of time, you know, in those places. I moved out of Quebec when I was 19, spent 12 years in Whistler, and now I've been here for 11.
Wow.
So I have really like my life is like divided in those 3 thirds at the moment.
Yeah.
And every third is like it's like a different life.
Right.
Completely different life, you know?
Yeah, of course. So you're one of the professional snowboarders that had a career-ending injury, right? You broke your back.
Yeah,
is that right?
So it was a back problem. So obviously it was a lead up to the back issues, but then, you know, being young and stupid and putting a bit of pressure and on yourself to get back to being on your board a bit too quick. I sort of re-injured my back like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 times in a space of 2 years.
Yeah.
So I was basically the year after People, which was like my best season ever, where, you know, everything worked out, no injuries, only one movie, good weather patterns. It just worked out, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, you know, I was going to film with the big Mack Dawg movie, which was like, fuck, man, are you kidding? Like, you know, like the first movie I've ever watched was Up the Ante.
Oh yeah, good movie.
And you know, like it's like you want to be a snowboarder, but I never thought that I would one day film with those dudes. So suddenly the opportunity was there, and I was like, fuck, man, this is it. Like, and I felt good about my snowboarding, but my body was failing. You know, I had like a knee surgery, and then a couple knee surgery on the left, and then I had like somehow bruised my heel on the same side, and then jammed my hip the summer before, and I think it never really went back where it was meant to go.
Yep.
But then I trained through the fall that way, so I just basically made all my muscle out of whack.
Oh, no.
You know, I was strong one way and then weak the other, and then my back was stiff, but I was still, you know, snowboarding hard in the early season. And I just took a flat landing one day, and I just pulled my back out completely. And then from there it was basically 08, 09, 2 years of just, well, actually, 08 and 09 and 07. I forget it. I think it was 2 or 3 years of just struggling. just mentally, physically, just struggling, like just thinking about not hurting myself, rather than just going out there and performing. So basically that Mack Dawg year was scratched. The following year, I was starting to feel better. I was meant to go back. Then I tweaked my back again playing ice hockey in December. So I called the guys like, dude, I think I'm fucked again. I can't do this, And then they were like, well, we can't keep your spot. We'll give it to somebody else.
Right.
I think I ended up working with Sandbox that year in 2009.
That makes sense.
I think 2008, I think. I did Sandbox, and I did like the Sugar Shack guys because they were kind of cool. They were just like, oh, we'll just, when there's room, we'll take you on board. And I was able to help the younger guys as well, so to navigate their way through to their season.
Yeah.
And then the GFC hit, I think, in 2008, 2009, and then everybody was cutting people, cutting back everywhere. And then similar happened to me.
Yeah.
Then Ben, which is very unfortunate, same company,
a
few years apart. They was telling me, no problem, we'll resign you. And then January 1st, you're done, dude. Sorry, see you later. Nothing. I went from like, global team, top of my game, to basically sponsorless in a financial crisis with no help. So I was like, well, this is fucked up. That didn't quite work out the way I was playing,
Jesus.
I kind of thought at the time of people, I was like, oh man, you know what? Like 3-4 more good years, man. Like it's going to be awesome. I kind of had given myself that time frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously it didn't happen. And with Nitro, I was on clothing, binding, boots, boards, So suddenly I was basically, no income.
Right.
And no real way to go after anybody. I mean, who's going to take a broken guy who's been on his back for 2 years? I don't completely blame Nitro. Like I wasn't showing any good signs of, real recovery. It could have been done a bit more smoothly, but, at the end of the day, I was pretty much done.
Right.
So I think at that point, I ended up doing some coaching, for this company, but my back was bad, dude. Like,
how was your mental health at that point? Like mentally, was this just like
I think I was in denial. I think I was a bit in denial, and I thought maybe I could still, and it just in the moment, like, I don't know, I just thought, I'll just go coaching. It's fine. I'm still snowboarding. But then like the back just kept getting worse and worse, slowly worse and worse. And then eventually I can't remember what it was. I think, I flew to Montreal to announce the shakedown.
Yep.
And then just the whole plan. I just remember coming back, dude. Like I got back from Montreal and I had to be wheelchair out of the plane. I could not walk. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And I was on Percocets. I had fucking Percocets with me the whole trip to like, handle it. Like, that's how dumb I was, right? You're on Percocets and you're trying to fucking go out there and like do shit, like stay the fuck at home. But, So I basically, I slept. Like I went to the hospital that night. I literally I called the ambulance. Like ambulance came to the hospital. I was on the floor of the airport with my feet up. And the guys are like, the fuck is wrong with you, dude? I'm like in so much pain. Anyway, they brought me to the hospital. They drugged me up. I had a few hours of sleep. And eventually, they kind of said, "Look, you have to go. You have to go. There's other people here that want your bed, And I'm like, what? Okay, so ended up driving myself back. I barely made it back to Whistler, dude. Driving my car. I actually stopped another halfway point to sleep again. And then when I got home, it was like shut down. That was it. I was fucking 3 months, I think, just chewing on Percocets every fucking day, just hanging on the floor. I was on the floor every day, just the nerve pain just going down my legs. That's in pure agony. And that was pretty much when I was like, I think I'm done. I was like, and the mental health was weird because, you're drugged up, so you don't think so much.
Right.
And then when you're not drugged up, you're in pure pain, so you don't think so much.
Right.
So it was a bit weird where I kind of like, at the time I met my girlfriend, which, was a savior, was my wife now, because she kind of kept me sane in a way. I had something else to give my focus to. She didn't see the best of me. but you know, she was supportive the best she could, you know, and that kept me going,
Right.
in one way. And that's when you know, she was from here.
Yeah.
Grew up here and all that, and you know, she was also going through change in her career, and I was like, you know what, like, fuck, what am I doing here? Like, I can't even fucking ride for my own pleasure.
Right.
And it was one of those things, you know, I was often reflected on this decision is that, you know, when you stack up the pain and you stack up the pleasure, the decision becomes quite easy to make, you know.
Yeah.
At the time, I was looking at my snowboarding career and living in Whistler with all those other dudes I always hung out with doing what I used to love, and me fucking having to get like a daytime job. I was like, fuck this.
Right.
You know, I literally like wanted to get the fuck away physically, mentally, and I was just didn't really see myself living in Whistler and not being able to snowboard.
Right.
And then on the other side, you know, I've always had this passion for the beach. You know, growing up, going to the beach a lot in the summer holidays, and I had this breakthrough mushroom trip once on Tofino Island.
Nice.
When I worked at the West Beach.
Sick.
And I was like, dude, I'm never gonna spend a year without going to the beach ever in my life. And if I have kids one day, man, I'm gonna have them on the beach.
Sick.
And then for some reason, that story that I created for myself stuck in my head, right?
Yeah.
And then I met that girl, and she showed me where she was from, and I was like, oh, dude, I'm like, fuck, let's go live on the beach, you know?
Hell yeah.
You know, let's just give my body a break from this snowboarding stuff. Let's go and hang out in the warm weather and the water and the surf. And it was like that was it. The decision was made, you know. It was like, let's go. And I actually moved here without ever even put a foot on this country before. I look on Google Earth, that looks pretty sweet, hun, let's go. And that was it, man. That's how it ended. Like, you know, so it was like, again, like the pain was stacked up, and then the pleasure was stacked up, and it was like, and I've always been sort of driven towards adventure, which is, you know, whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. And I was like, hey, let's go on an adventure. Let's go see what's happening, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a gut decision.
Yeah.
I don't regret it, but it was tough. It was tough to adjust for sure.
Yeah, that's a big move, dude.
A lot of, you know, change of family support, friends support, everything was a big change. And, you know, like, yeah, and the working a normal job as well, like normal-ish, like that was a bit weird.
Yeah, dude.
And then you get married, you know, you buy a house, and you get pregnant, and it was like, fuck, whoa, dude. It was fast, man, for different reasons. And it's interesting, man, like, you know, like life kind of throw you and tosses you some direction, and some things influence your decision, and you're in control, but not completely, man. Like, you know, like you're sort of like, you know, lost in the right direction. Once I remember, like Chad Chumlack said that it's like good to be lost in the right direction. And I kind of feel like sometimes I felt like that's how my life has been. You know, like you kind of know what you're doing, but not really.
Yeah.
And you kind of like going with it, and then it leads you left and then right and then left and up and down. And
how old are your kids now? They're 8 and
7 and turning 6 and 7.5, so they're like 18 months apart. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a handful. Hey, like that's a life changer.
Yeah, man. 2 girls, a lot of
Nice.
girls in the family, so lots of chit chat. You know, like, it's good fun, man. Okay, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's a lot of work.
Yep.
Like, I'm definitely, you know, like my freedom, and I think for a few years I sort of denied it. You know. You tell yourself, oh, you don't need that. You've just been used to telling yourself that you need that. It's like snowboarding. When snowboarding finished, I was like, it's your whole identity is built around that. And you got to shake yourself and look, you're not just that person, right?
Yeah.
Like you are other things, right? So you have to kind of create that new person in a way. But with the kids, it was the same thing a little bit. I told myself, like, you don't need to be doing all this shit for yourself. Like, it's not just about you anymore. But then after a few years, realized, oh, why did I strip myself from all those things that are good for me? So you have to constantly recalibrate, you know, like, you know, thinking about yourself, but not too much, and thinking about the family and everybody else, but not too much. Like, so, I come from, my parents were really funny. My mom, you know, always put everybody else first. Like, you know, if you put yourself first, not just selfish, but you're like you're vain, you know, like
Yes.
why would you be so good to your own person? Where my dad didn't give a shit about everybody else and was very selfish. So I've always had this kind of like foot in like I should, but then I want. And so for the kids, it's the same thing. So I'm figuring it out slowly. Like it's a bit more balanced now, you know, like I get a bit more time for myself. Like my big thing is golf now. With golf, it's cool because I can still feel like I'm competing and I can improve. Like I've always, you know, it's always been important for me to for some reason, like I've always been very sporty. So I need a tool, something to play with, something to control, like whether it's my snowboard or my hockey sticks or, you know, a tennis racket or a skateboard. And now it's a golf club. Like I like doing that. Like it really, it's my meditation, you know?
Yeah.
And with golf, I can still learn and improve myself. And you know, I like that. Right? So golf is my thing. Surfing, I would have liked surfing to work out, but for my back, it wasn't the greatest thing. You know, it probably made it worse. So unfortunately, surfing had to go. So yeah, the back thing, man, I can relate to Sean. You know, Cairns when he goes through depression, man. Like when your back goes, man, it's not easy. You know, when everything that you like doing is taken away from you, like I mean, and again, like some people have it worse than that, but it's still, you know, an adaptation. Like I wasn't clinically depressed. I was probably mildly depressed,
right,
at times, but you know, I managed to sort of pull through. I think the change for me was a big thing. You know, like moving here, it's like a fresh start.
And
but I think
focus,
if I would have stayed in Whistler, man, I could have potentially go down a bit deeper in the hole. Right. Because you're constantly exposed to what you're missing out, what you used to do. And that was part of my decision. It was like, I didn't want to see it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, obviously, like, even for the first couple of years, I kept looking at the social stuff and looking at people were doing, and then looking at guys that were a bit my age or older and be like, fuck, why are these guys doing it? You know, why me? You know, the most lame question in the universe. Like, well, why not fucking you, man? Give me a good reason why not you. I couldn't come up with a reason for that either. But yeah, man, you know, like just life, man. It's just a wild ride, you know.
Yeah.
Comes and goes, man. And we all have our stuff going on, and you know, it sucks, but fuck, it's beautiful at the same time. You know, I've watched my parents pass away the last, you know, we had like 4 people. Like we had my father-in-law, my wife's grandma, my mom, and my dad all passed away within 4 years. Oof. You know, so like 4 deaths in 4 years.
It's a lot.
And just to see like how people navigate that time, you know, of their life, like the passing away and the pain and how the family handles it, and yeah, it's a weird thing, man. But then it's like also can be full of love, you know, and beautiful and beauty, like through the pain. Mm-hmm. And like it's probably the hardest lesson. You don't even learn it, because a lesson that's learned is something you carry with yourself, you can apply easily. But you know, to be able to live through the pain and not reject it, you know, and just give it its right to be lived and felt. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty fucking tough heart to live, you know. And if anything, my dad lived it. It's like my dad lived his dying to the fullest, you know. And that was the most beautiful gift like he could give me, you know. Passing away was just, this is the final life lesson, you know. Wow. How to nail your dying. It's like, fuck, you're a fucking asshole, man. Like, and partially because his brain was affected by the cancer, but like, you know, like when he got diagnosed, he told me like the 3 weeks after my diagnosis are the 3 most beautiful weeks of my life. He said, wow, everything I saw was beautiful. Like I lived every single moment, you know, like. And even as he was dying, like he was happy. He was in peace, you know. Like he didn't really complain. Again, maybe the brain stuff and the drugs were a reason for it, but you know, like it's a pretty big life lesson, man. To be able to look at pain and fear and anger, and to be like, you know what, let's fucking live it. Let's feel that shit so we can move on to the next feeling, you know. That's a pretty big life skill, and I do sort of reflect on that. And you know, every time that I've gone through stuff, I put myself in a situation. I'm like, stop fucking fighting it, just fully fucking feel it. Every inches of your body, feel the pain, man. It's yours. Just embrace it. And when you do it, man, like, the pain eases. You know, like the pain eases. It was the same thing with my back, man. Like, you know, at the moment that I started accepting the fact that it was there, and that it wasn't going to be there forever, it's when it started to like ease off. I heard you talk about some stuff in the past episode, but you know, ayahuasca helped me, you know, in my own way of letting go of that freaking tension, you know, that fighting, you know, that I was like holding on to.
Yeah.
So that helped me a little bit, and there's a combination of things that you know helped me through my stuff. But
yeah, when you're saying that, you're reminding me, like, this year I've had this kind of insight into the way that it's like the world is like a haunted house.
Yeah.
And so like a guru or even a life coach, like a lot of times they're similar to somebody at a haunted house saying, well, okay, well, here you go. Like, that's not really a ghost over there. That's just a sheet with some holes cut in it. There's a guy who's going to jump out over here. He's going to scare you, but really it's not a real chainsaw, or it doesn't have the chain on it or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like life is a haunted house. You want to experience the thing. It would be way more fun to go through without somebody explaining the mechanism of what you're going to have. It's like, just go, okay, now you're going to be in pain. So you're going to be in pain for so long, you're not even going to remember what it's like to not be in pain. But it's like, if I fight it, this is nice to know, actually. If I fight the pain, it doesn't make it any better, and it actually makes the experience worse.
Yeah, don't swim against the current.
Don't swim against the current, right.
You can choose not to jump in the river.
Yeah.
You jumped in the river years ago, man. You ain't it. Just don't fuck it. You know, get over it.
Get over it. And enjoy the ride, man. Enjoy the river.
Man, you can swim left to right if you want. That's fine.
Yep.
You know, but don't go backward, man.
No, you can just float on your float on your back and look up at the stars or the clouds or like enjoy the thing that you're doing. And I use the haunted house analogy because, you know, for a lot of people, you know, most kids, you don't want to go in the haunted house. It's scary.
Yeah, man. But nobody wants to, man. We're trying to avoid suffering.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, exactly.
It's a natural thing for sure. I get it. Physically, again, DNA, evolution, man. You want to stay away from pain and danger.
Right.
You know, but psychologically, man, like, you know, it's a different story. Like, yeah, man. Like, there's a lot of
beautiful.
There's a lot to be said about the evolution of our race. You know, I read this book, Sapien. And it really changed. It's fucking awesome. Like, it really changed my way of looking at things because, you know, man, like, really, like, the way we live now, that's like fucking nothing, dude. It's been like, you know, a tiny little line in the history of our species.
Right.
So you think that our brain, our DNA is used the way we live now? Like, this, you think we know what we're doing over the phone? The phone's been around for 10 years, dude. Like, our brain is not equipped to deal with that shit. Like, we think we are. Right. But I swear, like, you know, in 50, 100 years time, we'll probably laugh the way we've been using our phone. Right. You know, we'd be like, hey, remember when we used to think we got it, and then we used to privacy this and the social, and the kids were on there, you know, like, fuck, we were so fucked up. Like, for sure, we'll be laughing at the way we use our phone.
Oh, I agree with you.
100 years.
I think the phone. There's something about the phone that's very similar to food, right? Like, so we're information for our brain is like nutrients for our brain, just like food for our body, right? Like, so after the war, there was all this, like, this push, like, to make, you know, craft dinner and cheese whiz and TV dinners and all this stuff because it was so exciting. People like sitting in front of a TV eating this meal that now when you look back, you go, oh, there's no nutrients in that whatsoever.
But it was also, it's almost like you said, like, what if war hits again? We have all this easy, cheap food we can produce,
Yep.
All you need is water and you're done.
It's true. But then the information for our brain is the same. We're going to look back at the phone thing and be like, oh, there was no nutritional value to that information. There's nothing like it's very, looking through Instagram, scrolling through Instagram, like mine is mostly snowboarding. So that's, I give myself a little bit of a pass, but definitely the stuff that's in there, like it's like non-nutritional excitement for your brain. Like, oh, there's a girl in a bikini. Oh, there's a car crash. Oh, there's a guy skateboarding.
And it works, man.
Yeah.
It fucking works, like it's well done. Smart people,
Right, just like the food thing. Yeah, yum. That craft dinner's delicious, but if you eat it all day, every day, your body starts to tell you, you got to have some real food soon.
Yeah, I could go on, man, forever about the state of our planet. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are as well, but it's crazy to think that, it's all made up. Like, it's our creation. Nobody's forced us to this stuff. Like, we made the whole thing up.
Yeah.
It's literally everything is made up, dude. And it's like the snowboard industry.
Yep.
You hear people complaining about it, but like, you guys, like, hey, we made that thing up. Like, we went along with the trends and we said yes to these guys, and it's all our own creation.
Yeah.
And I think for the guys out there that are going up or in it, like, man, like, if you see shit that you don't like, fucking change it, man. Like, seriously, especially now, like, you have so much power with the social and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you need guys with a lot of guts and balls that are gonna say, fuck it, man. Like, I'm just gonna do the fuck I want.
Yeah.
And then if it works out, it works out. If not, I move on. But I think me looking back, you get desperate because you want it, and therefore you're willing to do whatever it takes, and then you kind of sacrifice, or you make decisions that are based more on your success as an athlete financially than your success as a snowboard artist or a creator of what you want to put out there.
Right. Right.
And I think that's unfortunately the problem with, I hate to say it, but anyway, I'm going to sound very like socialist, but like the fucking financial system is limiting our creativity.
Yes.
Because you have to make money, therefore if people are going there, you're going to give them what they want. Well, They don't fucking know what they want. Like, what if you have something else that didn't realize existed?
Right.
And you give it to them, they'll freaking eat it,
Yep.
And we're putting our own barriers in front of us with the system we created, that we think is working great for us.
Right.
But that's a whole conversation, a different conversation.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned ayahuasca. Having an ego melting experience where you realize,
man.
Talk to
me. I know we're running over time, but talk to me about your DMT stuff, because I've never spoke to anybody who's done it, and I'm curious.
Okay, cool, man. Well, yeah. So for me, as soon as I tried DMT, I was in a kind of a group setting, and I instantly knew that I needed to do this by myself. And and one of the reasons is that there was a bit of a sexual energy to it that was embarrassing for me. So I wanted to explore that and see, and I wanted to do that by myself. I didn't want to open my eyes and have people looking at me going like, so, well, what how are you? And I'm, So I went to a local shop and said, I'd like to buy some DMT. And they were like, are you insane? Nobody sells that. So you have to synthesize it. You have to make it yourself. You have to get the raw ingredients. You have to do some science. And I looked it up on YouTube. It wasn't that difficult. So I did it.
You actually made your own
I made
stuff.
my own from Mimosa hostilis root bark. Yeah. Isn't that insane? So I was so
you're a dad. You're a dad?
I'm a dad. That's right. Yeah. So
and you're like, dude, dad's going to do some dad stuff.
Totally. The kids are in the backyard going, what the hell is this? I'm like, actually, you know what's so funny is my daughter was taking chemistry at the time. And she was like, oh, you're doing an AB solution extraction. What's your target molecule? And I'm like, oh, it's dimethyltryptamine. She's like, oh, cool. She didn't know what DMT is. So she's
my God.
She's like, oh, you're doing an acid-base reduction, whatever it was. And she knew more about what I was doing. I was just following instructions, like a recipe.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And
so
then
you made your stuff, you took it,
Yeah, well,
And then,
I was sitting in this exact sauna that I'm sitting in talking to you, and I was like afraid because I didn't know, like, what have I made? I've made a white powder, right? Like, I don't know.
did you tell anybody?
Nobody, man. Maybe my wife. I told my wife, like, hey, I'm gonna be
Okay, your
smoking some.
wife knew.
Yeah,
Your
she
wife
knew.
knew.
Yeah, so I'm
And she
sitting.
was 100% supportive.
She no, not completely. She was thought I was crazy. The first time I
Yeah.
smoked it in front of her, she was like, "Is it crack or something? It doesn't smell like weed. Like, what are you doing?" And which, when you're on DMT and your partner who you love the most is asking you if you're on crack, and you're hallucinating and freaking, and I wasn't freaking out, but I was like, okay, well, note to self, she shouldn't be my guide. She shouldn't be watching me. Again, I was pushed to the, like, I want to do this while I'm by myself. So what I would do,
man.
what I settled on, two things happened. Number one, there's a place in Vancouver where you can get your drugs tested for free. So they looked at my DMT under a spectrometer, which just like looks at the molecules of what I made. And they came back and said, okay, that's 100% pure DMT.
You're good to go.
Yeah, you're good to go. I was like, oh, okay, so now I can relax. I don't have to worry about what it is. I know I've got the right stuff.
Wow.
So then I had to do the set and setting thing, which is so important for psychedelics. Set and setting is like the biggest factor in what kind of trip you're going to have. So I would have my blinds closed in my room. There's blackout blinds in my room, which work nice for sleeping, but are also really great for doing psychedelic drugs. And I set up a vaporizer, so I vaporized it, and I had the whole setup so it wouldn't, fall over and start a fire or anything. Very safe. I felt great, and so I would do a dose of DMT and lie in my bed and just like, it's honestly like exploring outer space. There's entities, there's aliens.
Did you come back? Did you come back sort of like feeling like you had new insight and you would change and you had a new sort of outlook on certain things? Or? Okay,
so what I would say is that, with any major psychedelic trip, like so when you go like all the way, right? Like your mushroom trip into Fino, you come back with what I call infinity mind. I just made that up.
Yeah.
I feel like your mind just understands the bigger picture.
The boundaries melt. For sure. You're there. You that sort of cognitive understanding that you're part of something bigger than you. And,
absolutely.
You're not separated. You are it. Like you get it as a feeling, as an experience, not as a thought, right? Right.
And so that, for me, with the DMT trip was kind of separate from the trip itself, because the trip itself is like an open eye, whole field of view hallucination. So it's like...
it's very visual.
It's like... And it's bizarre. Words can't describe it. We don't have words for it.
To me, the explanation of the trip is not as important as what you came out of it with. Right?
Which is infinity mind. That's the thing. And that's separate from the actual experience, I find. Like describing the experience is fun because it's like, well, there's aliens. One time I saw R2-D2. There's like cartoon jesters. There's like a lot of love there. I saw a dragon. That was the most insane trip that I ever had. I saw a fucking serious dragon and was like examining it up close and looking at it. And I love that stuff. It felt like it was like awesome. DNA or something. Like it was like there was some connection between the coiling of DNA and this dragon swirling off into the.
Dude, I swear, like I think there's so much to that kind of shit. Like I feel like this is the future, dude. Like there's gonna be like it's happening, right? Clinically, like there's a lot of research happening now with mushrooms, with LSD,
tons.
And DMT probably will. DMT is actually being used in PTSD treatment. It's happening, right?
It's intense.
And, I really like, man, I wish I could just be like, live for another 1,000 years and just see everything, and I was just so curious, man, to see how it's gonna pan out, man. Like it's so crazy because, technology will never stop, right? And then we'll survive. And then people are afraid about the climate change and all that. And don't get me wrong, I get it, right? But you know what? We're not killing the planet. We're killing ourselves, right? If we kill ourselves, the planet will survive. There will be new species. And really the chance of wiping human being ourselves, I think it's almost like thinking you're God. Okay, like
Yeah.
you're not gonna kill the whole species, man. Like we survive in all these fucking thousands and thousands of years. Okay, like I'm be very surprised if we make enough damage to the planet where the whole species is wiped. I don't really believe that, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't worry, because look, there's a lot of pain like involved in not giving a shit.
Right.
Well, I don't know why I'm getting to this right now, but like it's almost like I often think like we're going to be fine. The question is not, are we going to be fine? The question is, how much suffering is it going to take before we actually make, a real change, right?
If you look back in that book you're talking about, like, I don't know how much it goes into the world wars or whatever, but that was a crazy time of suffering on the planet, right?
Man.
Crazy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
And that wasn't that long ago.
Crazy.
That was like our grandparents. Yeah. Our grandparents.
But now now the suffering is different. That was acute, pinpoint suffering with obviously an ongoing effect. Now it's like the suffering is silent,
Yeah.
People like Chad said, everybody is like running away from themselves in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is running away from like what they're really feeling and from the pain, right? It's like I don't know. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm talking out of my ass really, because all I've seen in my life. Well, it's true though. All we've seen in our lives. I don't know about you, but it's like the way we live, the American way of living, Canadian way of living, the Australian way of living, UK, like all these like well-established countries, like it's the minority of the actual world population, and we talk as if like everybody lives that way.
Right.
We're privileged. We're actually privileged. You know what I mean? Like,
oh my God, yeah, I remember when they were talking about the 1% as though that those were the most evil people on the planet. Well, we're a part of that 1%.
It's crazy.
That's nuts, but it's also something that our lives are designed not to show us that, because we're sold so many things. I mean, that's a rabbit hole in itself. Like the consumerism, the phone. Like I have a new phone. My kids have new phones. They want phones, even though the best parts of their life, where they're the most alive, is when their phone is nowhere in the picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
When you're in a forest,
it's
when
like
you're snowboarding, when you're at the beach. Yeah.
That's why I love going camping, because you know what? You camping, you strip it back, man. Like, you don't have the fucking lights in the house on. You don't have a TV. You don't have your phone. You're living with the sun, and the sun is up. You're up. The sun goes down. You go to sleep. You have a fire, and you watch the stars. But you're just living in sync with our ancestors. The way our DNA remembers it, because our DNA has been living that way for a shit lot longer than living with lights on. And we haven't got used to this shit yet, and we think we have.
It's totally true. It's totally true.
So, and I think that, again, going back in time, when people walked around and try shit that they found and come across a mushroom, they thought, oh my God, we found the fucking Ole, thing here.
Yes.
And they felt connected even deeper to the world they were already connected to.
Absolutely.
And they felt like this stuff, I think that psychedelics have a lot to do with, like the spiritual belief.
Absolutely.
Of our race.
Early Christianity had the wine. Like wine wasn't always grapes. It wasn't always wasn't always alcohol. Actually, there's like
100%.
There's somebody that did some research on some ancient artifacts that they found that the trace, and it was cool to hear, man. Like some of what they burned in the church, like for incense, was like marijuana, and then in the chalices, the wine was mushroom wine.
So you can think about it, right? With no social judgment or whatever you call it, right?
Yeah.
If you come across and you have your little taster dude, like I said, who just taste this, it's your turn to taste, and you try this shit out, and you just have the best time ever.
Yeah.
You think he's gonna tell his mate, they're not gonna be like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Of course they're gonna say it's amazing, man, like, because it is.
It's crazy. It's non-toxic too. Like what if there's ever a sign from God, right? Eat the fucking mushrooms. Don't drink booze. Drink booze and you're gonna get rowdy. You're gonna forget what you're doing. Yeah. You're gonna
But again, it's like it's the way we use things, right? Because
absolutely,
all these things were used in a ceremonial way with a purpose, right? They didn't smoke tobacco. The native Indians didn't smoke tobacco every fucking day.
No.
They sat in a circle in the teepee, they fucking pass it around, and they talk about shit, whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when alcohol was created, they didn't drink every day casually for fun. It was a ceremony. It was like today we drink together, you know?
Yeah.
And it's that social use that, as you know, and again with time, it's almost like sometimes there's some things about our species that we've forgotten. It's like the civilization amnesia. You know, we've forgotten over time the meaning of things and what the purpose of it was, and then suddenly it turns into a bad thing.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, yesterday here, I mean, Australia is behind the 8 ball here. They're way behind marijuana being legalized. Like, fuck that. Like, they have no idea. But they do, but they're resisting it. Right. And even here, I mean, on the radio this morning, I was hearing about psychedelics and mushroom being used in clinical trial for PTSD. PTSD and other things
is the main thing, because what happens for people is they get stuck in their thinking. And what we've talked about here, psychedelics take your thinking and totally turn it on its head. You're thinking in a completely different way, and it's novel and it's exciting. It's also very scary, and it'll challenge those things, especially the things that you tell yourself that you are.
Yeah, if everybody on this earth was introduced in a healthier way to ceremonial use of these medicines. Mm-hmm. And fish, I reckon we'd be in a better place.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know, because it allows you to think and just see like the whole thing outside the box.
Yeah.
And it just snaps you back to reality, you know. And I've often said when I go camping, I don't try to escape reality. I reconnect with the reality, man. Like, you know, I don't try to escape it. You know, I go back to the real stuff. It's like, you know, like we talk about all those guys partying in Whistler. I was thinking about that yesterday because I was listening to your stuff in West and Kern. People are partying, and you know, there's the people that party to forget, and we've all been there. You know, something shit is happening. We want to party to forget, but you know, then there's a party that the people that party to celebrate the connection that they have, and then the connection gets stronger to the partying. Now that's partying, right? That's that kind of party.
That's
not
right.
the party that you're angry, you get booze because you want to forget, and then you fucking break shit because all that anger is stuck inside you.
Yes.
That's one way to get it out, but it's not a healthy way, right?
Right.
And so, you know, if you use those substances in a healthy way,
responsibly,
in a way that it deepens the connection you already feel with the community, with yourself, you know.
There's intention behind it.
There's nothing healthier than that. You're celebrating life, you know?
Yeah.
And I often felt like Whistler, when I was there, that's what it was. People celebrating, living, you know, a very happy life. And that's what all the energy came from.
Totally. Yeah, there's one thing that I always like to talk about if I talk about psychedelics, and that's integration, because that's what's missing from the party part. Like if you take mushrooms at a party and you laugh with your friends, it's pretty fun. That's great. But there's no integration of any sort of like insights that, you know, you need to go with intention and then integrate. And I'm not preaching.
To go inside yourself.
It's hard. It's hard. Like I've done those trips by myself, and sometimes I'm so confused by what I see that I just go away from it. I mean, the last time I smoked DMT was October 31st, so Halloween, and I had such a weird trip. I haven't done it since, and I haven't been able to integrate that because I don't think I did it for the right reason. I did it because my wife was drinking booze, and I stayed sober to drive, and watching everybody, you know, let loose and party. I got home and I was like, well, I want to do something. Maybe I want to hit. Maybe I'll do some DMT, and then everything turned to slime. I was like, holy shit. And I just hung on for 20 minutes while I was on this kind of uncomfortable trip. That was like my brain saying to itself, like, hey man, this isn't recreational. This isn't a party drug. This is something serious, bro. Yeah, man. Like integrate that shit. Integrate this knowledge, because it's actually, especially mushrooms, I feel, they're pushing a togetherness to show us that we're not separate from everybody. So like that's the intention. You come out of that. It's like you need to share that with people. I'm glad you asked about it because I love talking about it. And it's also been something that's really allowed me to do the show, right? Like allowed me to be like, hey man, you can do stuff. You can do things that you love. It doesn't have to be for money and it doesn't have to be for anybody else, just for yourself. Like follow your,
and that's the best thing, you know, if people can find time or make time for those things that are just because they feel right and for the right reason, man, like, you know, it's awesome. Unfortunately, like I was saying, it feels like our lifestyle often strip us from that time, you know, from because you have kids, you're busy, man, you're working, you're doing this, like, fuck it, where does it happen? But I'm not complaining, I'm just kind of stating the observation, and that's why I was saying it's all an evolution, right? Everything always changing, and I just, you know, I hope I can live as long as I can just to see what happens, how it all pans out for the next, because it's amazing, man. Like, you know, you think maybe our kids will say, I remember when you used to have to drive your car, Dad. You know, we actually had to go places, and you actually got behind the wheel, and you had to drive. Like that was so fucking stupid. You know?
Yeah, I think of that. Like my grandfather, if he was in an elevator, there was a driver. Somebody had to drive the elevators.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? Now you just push a button. We've never known that to be the case, right? So yeah, our grandkids aren't going to be driving cars. They're going to be, whoa, you used to drive these things? Why,
man?
Like, why?
And you used to have car crash where people used to die on the road because you couldn't drive properly?
Yep.
Like, what happened? And then there's snowboarding, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
But like I said, man, I love snowboarding. You know, I dream about it still.
Do you go? Do you go in Australia?
I don't go very. I try to go once a year.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a hike. It's the biggest reason I think is family and health. Like my back is all right, you know, I can do stuff, but I need to be in good shape. And then just the thought of taking a hit and, you know, fucking myself up, it's just so scary to me, man. Like I've had enough physical pain, mental pain about it, where when I do go now, it's about the kids, right? It's just about showing them a good time and then being on the mountain. You do have to hold yourself back, you know, like the time that I went couple of years ago before COVID, I was feeling good and I had taking a few laps on my own, and there's the corner hit shows up, you have the perfect angle, you're coming up and you can see, and you're like, and then you break, you're like, fuck, I can't do it, you know.
Wow.
And it sucks. Like a part of me like goes like, damn it, you know, I can still enjoy the sport, but I do have to just really hold myself back, because in my head it's still happening, you know. Like I said, I have vivid dreams of doing the tricks, you know. And I woke up, I'm like, well, I went snowboarding last night. I actually felt like an actual memory from yesterday, you know. And I've had that multiple times ever since I've stopped or moved here.
Yeah.
And I watch my feed. My feed is full of snowboarding. I follow it, you know. I wouldn't say closely. I don't know the gossip. I don't know what's going on in the industry, but I can see the progression of the riding and where it's heading. And it's fun to watch, man. I enjoy watching it a lot, you know. Everything about it. It could be every type of terrain. I do enjoy watching the whole spectrum, just like I used to enjoy riding the whole spectrum.
Yeah, that's sick. It's such a fun thing to be connected with. That's something that I think for my kids, I want them to have something that they love the way that I love snowboarding. Like it's just such a connection to a community of cool people. I mean, I'm talking to you, you're over in Australia. There's like people all around the world that listen to the show, which is insane to me. And it's just a love of snowboarding.
And the whole mindfulness about it, you know, like it's a living action meditation, right? Like it's like Bruce Lee. What did Bruce Lee say? I think Bruce Lee used to say, movement through stillness. Yeah, that's it. Like, right. So you're moving, but like you're so focused, like you're from, you know, there's nothing else, right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, that's why it's so healthy, man. Because when you're going down the hill, you know, obviously the most extreme version would be going down Khyber Pass, or, you know, a freaking awesome tree run full of fresh pow.
Yeah.
It's a bit of mountain biking down the hill, right? You're not thinking about anything else. You're just like, you see a hole, you're going there, bing, bang, you're slashing, you're hearing your friends screaming, and then you're in the moment. Like that's the drug, right? Because that's what we don't get enough these days. We're always in our head, and you get that little freaking mindfulness dose in your day, man, and it just keeps you going, and it's beautiful. There's not that many sports, that provides you with that.
That's true.
And just the beauty of being the first one down a certain patch of snow, and making your mark, like it's a really fucking awesome thing to do.
I think I can't think of anything more awesome. We were talking about it in the Seymour parking lot yesterday. The guys were talking about free diving and flying through the air in those squirrel suits. Like those are really like, I mean, that's death defying. You know what I mean? Like that's like if one bail and you're toast. Whereas we can fall a bunch. Snowboarding, you can fall a bunch, and lots of times
it's a safer way. Safer way to be in that state, for sure.
But I mean, when you get to that, like that footage from people, holy shit! I mean, those are real consequence fucking tricks you're doing. So it's the same thing. Right. It's
all
right
about
at
the
edge.
Progression, knowing the limits, and then knowing the equipment, and knowing how far you can push it, and the elements. So there's a lot of calculation involved. Clearly, the consequence level is it's pretty freaking full on. Yeah,
and then there's soul turns for yourself while you're by yourself, and then there's a day with a crew out filming something where like you started the conversation with, you go out and you get 3 tricks. That's a big fucking day, dude. 3 tricks in one day, like that's fucking huge.
Yeah, and it was like pure like innocence, like I'll just hit that, and it works out. I'll do that one,
Yeah, sick.
Yeah,
I love that. It's connection. Snowboarding has it runs the whole gamut. You can do it completely by yourself, and you can do it connected to every other snowboarder on the planet, right?
Yeah.
Like it's fucking amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
I still love it to this day.
100%, man.
All right, Etienne, man. This has been so sick talking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. And I want to keep in touch for sure.
Yeah, man.
And touch base with you again.
I'm going to listen to all your stuff now on book,
Good luck, man. It's
cool.
a lot.
There's a lot. I mean, it's all the guys that, obviously we look up to, and guys that we shared, times and in our lives, and it's good to hear what they're doing. Like it's one thing to look at this feed, but it's a different thing to hear them talking about their life stories and their experience. So it's I like it, man.
There's a Kevin Young one. The Kevin Young one is great.
Yeah, man.
He's awesome, man. Always been a huge fan of KY.
For sure, man. Like the KY was actually the first pro that I saw in the village.
Yeah.
I was walking, and it's like when you see somebody like, I know that person. You don't realize it's a pro, right? And because you're making eye contact, he just had the biggest smile, give me the biggest wave, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And then he walked by, and I was like, "Fuck, that's Kevin Young." And I think that was within the first week or two. And you know what? I was like, I have arrived. It was like, fuck, I'm here, man. And it was almost like you was welcoming me into the town.
That's so dope, dude.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and thanks for being such a rad guy and inspiring so many of the people that have done so much for snowboarding, for style, for progression, and for the evolution of the sport. So dope.
Yeah, man.
Thanks
for your work, buddy.
Yeah,
we'll keep in touch. All right. All the best.
Yeah, you too.
Ciao.
Peace. FNRad shoutouts this week to Etienne and everybody who supports the show. Thank you to all the sponsors. Thank you to all the guests. Thank you to all the listeners. You guys rock. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.